welcome to Ukraine Today. We're here in the western Ukrainian city of Chernivtsi for the Meridian Chernowitz 2015 Poetry Festival. I'm joined today by a very special guest. This is Ambassador Christof Weil. He's the German ambassador to Ukraine. Many thanks for joining us.
With pleasure.
I've had some discussions here with poets and critics and writers, so I'm very pleased to have a new point of view, I think, from a diplomat.
Which will probably not differ so much from what you've heard so far.
So what do you think so far? We're here, it's day 3 of the festival, and what have you seen? I know you gave some opening remarks at the opening, and how have you enjoyed it so far?
I very much like the city. They say the stones speak in Chernowitz. So it's also for many Germans, actually, or Germans who love literature, poetry, it's a dream city. It's also, perhaps as it was called the other day, a retrospective utopia, which some of us perhaps are looking for in the city.
That's because there have been many prominent German, at least they wrote in German,
yes.
During the Austrian-Hungarian Empire.
Well, actually, the high point of German literature in Chernowitz was in the years in between the wars, and Jewish authors who wrote in German, and many Germans who are well versed in German language poetry would probably say that one of the greatest poets of the German language in the 20th century hails from Chernowitz, Paul Celan.
It is. I figured when we came to this city, I felt that it was really a very special place to hold a poetry festival, just because of the history is so rich, and so many important and famous names have passed through.
And not only for German literature, it really, Chernowitz has a wonderful tradition of a multicultural city, and a beautiful thing about this festival is that it sees itself in that tradition of a multicultural exchange.
And one thing that struck me was actually the prominence here of the German language. And that was not something I was necessarily aware of, because I tend to think that English is the dominant language at international events like this. But actually in Ukraine, intellectual life and cultural life, a lot of it is conducted in German.
I would probably say that the majority of young poets or older poets who joined the festival this year are German-speaking poets. But not only, a wonderful Israeli poet, Jonathan Berg, we were at the synagogue together where he recited, or at the so-called ceremonial hall in the Jewish cemetery, and of course many young Ukrainian talents.
They switch very easily and fluently between Ukrainian and German. I think
there is a very good German faculty of German at the very good university here, and in particular my friend Professor Richlot, who interpreted a lot of the poetry. I had the pleasure of bestowing upon him 4 years ago the German Order of Merit, because he really has translated German literature practically from the Middle Ages to contemporary literature, and thus really contributed greatly to making available in Ukrainian German literature.
And you see, and so obviously I think German literature here and the links between German and Ukrainian literature, they have a very bright future here, and the links are strong.
The links are strong. They could be much stronger because, of course, infrastructure-wise, Chernowitz is not an easy place to reach. I think it has a future also, by the way, for German investment, but the bad shape of infrastructure really is a handicap. But I see the political will of, together with the European Union, of improving that. It has proximity to the Romanian border, which is a EU border, which I think for German business is a comparative advantage that Chernowitz has.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes me think that perhaps Chernowitz could be...
Now using the German term.
I know. I've switched into German for you, but Chernivtsi could be a city in Ukraine which could be at the forefront of positive change here.
I think there is a big potential of also cultural tourism from Germany and other countries. Austria, we shouldn't forget, which I think many Austrians still feel a particular attachment to the Bukowina. Austria, but also other countries. Paul Celan, as you might know, died in France, actually, and also has a great reputation in France.
If I could just say, because you've come to this festival for many years, and I just wonder how it feels this year in comparison to, say, last year, or perhaps even better to say maybe a year or two before that, when we didn't have this conflict going on in East Ukraine. I understand, from what I understand from other conversations here, it has cast something of a shadow.
Of course. Actually, I found very touching in the recitals of the Israeli poet Russain-backed that he drew a parallel to some extent between the conflict in the Near East and here, and very much through his recitals, very much a humanitarian engagement came to the fore. But nevertheless, yes, there is a shadow of the conflict, of course. Young people also from the Bukowina are fighting in the east. And we're conscious of that.
Does it offer, at the same time, a certain some intensity? It offers a certain thrust to art and to poetry?
Well, there was one event within the festival where very intelligent people discussed the effect, the counter effect of war and culture. So yes, it is a topic here, but it is and remains a poetry festival. And I think, spiritually speaking, if I may, I think sometimes we all, and Ukrainians, of course, in particular, it's a respite in a way, a cultural breather, or as the French would say, a prise de conscience. For me anyway, it's to take a step aside from everyday business in Kyiv, which of course has to deal with the conflict. It was 3 contemplative days here in Chernowitz, which I enjoyed very much.
Ambassador Weil, many thanks for coming to speak with us.
Pleasure. Thank you.